Hello, Molweni, Sanu, Hujambo. I'm Thembekile Mrototo, and this is Unwrap Africa, where every week we focus on the latest news, trends, and successes of the African continent. Siyaqaqa. And our question of the day tonight, the battle for the burial of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu is continuing between the Zambian government and his family. And we want to know if you think this will eventually be resolved months after his death. We'll take your comments then on voice notes. Send those via WhatsApp. The number is +27 78 1897. You can also find us on Facebook. Our name there is SABC Unwrap Africa. And on X, we are at SABC News_TV. Let's round up all the biggest stories from the continent this week. His first ambassador to the United States, Franklin Sun, has died at the age of 86. He held 12 honorary doctorates and was also a recipient of the National Order Counselor of the Baobab in silver. Doctors in Gabon say that a new single-dose malaria treatment could help to curb the disease's growing resistance to existing drugs. The new drug cleared malaria parasites in 93% of patients tested. A fierce power struggle has erupted between Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and his Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko. The disagreements follow Faye's unilateral announcement of the removal of Assatou Mboji. That's a key Sonko ally as the head of the Diomaye President coalition. Algeria has granted a humanitarian pardon to French-Algerian novelist Boualem Sansal. It's after a year-long imprisonment that sparked international condemnation. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has fired Vice President Benjamin Bol-Mel, stripping him of his position as deputy leader of the ruling SPLM party. President Kiir has also demoted Mel from general to private, that's in the National Security Service. Mel's growing influence as well as ambitions reportedly unsettled Kiir. And as a severe full blockade paralyzes Mali's capital, giant colorful marionettes danced through Bamako streets this week in a defiant celebration of resilience. Organizers of the annual Rendezvous Chez Nous, or Chez Nous, yes, festival, were demanding to bring joy to a city that is grappling with economic collapse. To Uganda now, where people have been celebrating the historic election of Kampala-born Zohran Mamdani as New York City's first Muslim mayor. He's also, by the way, the youngest mayor in more than a century. His rise from a Ugandan childhood to the top of American politics has stirred pride and reflection back home on what young Africans can achieve if given the chance. SABC's Michael Baleke reports.
From a childhood spent in Uganda's capital to the bright lights of New York, Zohran Mamdani's journey has captured hearts here in Kampala. Born to academic and filmmaker parents, he grew up surrounded by ideas, sport and service, traits many say shaped the leader he is today.
One quality that stood out from the go was curiosity, looking for the details. And then he was a very good listener. Very argumentative when he got his chance to make a point, he would passionately make his point. But when other people were talking, he was always listening.
Interned at a local media house during his school break, where colleagues recall a young man driven by curiosity and compassion.
I remember him in the newsroom, in the radio studio during talk shows, political talk shows, and he would be like, so these guys have misappropriated this money. Who was this money meant to support? Who will pay the price? So those were the questions of a 16-year-old boy by then, and you could just see he's concerned about people. So, and then the other bit which was always exciting was when it came to maritime, as for people going to the staff canteen, cafeteria, where they would have their meals. For him, he would opt to go into the makeshift restaurant in the suburb, which is basically, it's a low-income area, it's a slum, and that's where he would prefer to go for his meal.
Outside work, friends remember him as a cheerful, down-to-earth and passionate about cricket, the game that kept him grounded. From these very cricket fields in Kampala, the young Zohran Mamdani learned the value of focus, teamwork and determination. Back then, he was just another kid with a bat and big dreams. But today, these dreams have taken him all the way to New York, where he's now the city's mayor. It's a remarkable journey from Uganda to the world stage. Teammates say the same discipline he showed on the pitch is what now drives him in politics.
He was a good guy. He was too friendly. He was friendly with everyone. Because I remember we could play together, warm up together. We guys could play football together because I interact together. Though there was some other friend of his, other Indians, other guys of his, who were too close to him. But it did not despite the fact that we are all together, we are all under one team. But you could share things together. Sometimes they come with something to eat and say, guys, I brought something here. Guys, let us share, let us eat all this together, which was so good.
Celebrates one of its own, making history abroad. Mamdani's story is rekindling hope that young Africans too can rise from small beginnings to global influence. Michael Baleke, SABC News, Kampala.
So diplomatic tensions between Zimbabwe and Zambia appear to have been resolved as the Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema arrived in Harare on Friday for the inaugural Zimbabwe-Zambia Binational Commission. It was Hichilema's first state visit to Zimbabwe since assuming the presidency in August of 2021. Observers see this visit as a sign of a thaw in diplomatic relations between the two neighbors. The visit was also meant to basically deepen economic ties, as well as hopefully help find solutions to the power shortages that are still bedeviling both nations.
The political rift between Harare and Lusaka is on the mend. Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema landed in Zimbabwe on a weekend visit for the inaugural Zimbabwe-Zambia Binational Commission, with the two nations signing 6 memoranda of understanding in various fields, including diplomatic training, agriculture and immigration. The Zambian leader expressed his country's solidarity with its neighbor.
That Zambia reaffirms its unwavering support for the total lifting of sanctions against Zimbabwe. If these sanctions had their value at a time, the value has expired. We need Zimbabwe to exercise its desire to develop the economy, to support its people. Sanctions are standing in the way. I must say, Mr. President, those sanctions on Zimbabwe affect us because they limit what we can do with each other. So we have a vested interest. So that's our call.
Turning to economic matters, the Zambian leader called on increased cooperation in the business sector of the two countries. Both leaders promoted a free trade between Zambia and Zimbabwe and committed to do away with any trade barriers that have hindered business in the past.
Mr. President, I've issued a guidance to my Commerce Minister that anything that stands in the way of goods that are manufactured here and are in demand in Zambia must be removed. And I believe vice versa is what will happen. Electricity issues were hit by the shortage of electricity. We've asked my minister to work with his counterpart to make sure that the wheeling arrangements, transmission capability must be enhanced. Take the duties between our two businesses. Take the duties out. Take the tariffs. While others are imposing tariffs, let's take the tariffs out. then we'll have more growth transactions in our two countries. Mr. President, we are talking of the Africa Free Trade Area. Africa trades the least with itself as a continent. And we're all guilty because we don't trade as much between Zambia and Zimbabwe. So if we are talking of Africa Free Trade Area, it must start with Zimzam and other neighbors in the SADC.
Peace and security was also high in the deliberations of the two nations.
It is undesirable that inter- and intra-state conflicts continue to threaten successful implementation of the regional and continental development agenda. We remain concerned over the security and humanitarian situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. We are confident that ongoing efforts of the region and the international community will bear fruit.
Next door, Cabo Delgado, both of us are neighbors to Mozambique. Cabo Delgado, northern Mozambique, where we all had sent our troops there. Instability anywhere is instability everywhere. Let's maintain peace, security, and stability in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, in SADC, on the continent of Africa, and globally. Because you've all seen the effect of the Ukraine-Russia war on us, on the continent. So we seek peace. The two countries talk peace.
It was not disclosed whether the matter of the late former Zambian president, Edgar Lungu, who died in South Africa, and the ongoing dispute and tensions between Hichilema and the Lungu family over the repatriation of Lungu's body, which still lies in a South African mortuary, was discussed when the two leaders met. Dita Botsotetsi, SABC News.
When Unwrap Africa continues, we'll speak to the convener of the upcoming G20 social event, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. Don't go away.
SABC, host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.
So then South Africa will host the G20 Social Summit this week. That's ahead of the leaders meeting next weekend. The G20 Social Summit is basically a precursor event. It's meant to provide an inclusive platform that will amplify the voices of civil society, grassroots organizations, and local communities. The gathering will also give a platform for these groups to basically speak directly on global issues that impact daily life. Earlier, we spoke to G20 Social Summit convener Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka about what to expect. I
think it was ready as can be. Excited, especially about the participation of young people in all our events, because as you know, for us, the G20 Social is about important target groups such as young people, women, people from rural areas, and hearing their voices in such stages is very important.
Well, given that, I mean, we're looking at civil society movements and just some of the calls on the ground. They, in lieu of the theme solidarity, equality and sustainability, they've been calling for the inclusion of marginalized groups in key sectors all across the world. If we break it down, if we look at some of the policy issues that will be discussed by civil society, perhaps you can allude to some of that ahead of it.
Yeah. Well, in the G20 Social specifically, we are discussing both policies and actions that need to be taken in very important sectors such as health, education is important, the economy, and we are allowing young people and these marginalized groups to make their voices heard on those issues.
Well, I mean, if we're looking at the voices that will be heard of these social movements, the activists as one, the impact they'll have on the decisions, you know, we're trying to ascertain how long-lasting they're going to be, because it is a non-binding nature of the G20 with the incorporation of civil society. How do we ensure that they're going to turn these discussions, you know, into concrete, actionable, properly integrated policies that we see playing out on the ground at large?
Indeed, in line with the theme, as you have mentioned, we have taken a view that as much as possible, whatever we will be raising within the G20 has to be something that is sustainable. It has to be actions that we can take by ourselves, not just in November, but well beyond November. It must not depend on the G20 being convened, on who is hosting. It must also be possible for us to continue with these action using our own resources on the continent.
Yes, and it needs to be specific to our scenarios and an African context as well. That's very important. Thank you for speaking to that. You are an advocate. You've been a champion for gender equality. You've spoken about the youth aspect, education as well. At this point, what are some of those social issues that you think need urgent attention at this point? I mean, we're seeing social media, some of the sentiments being played out, profile pictures turning purple. That's in support of this planned nationwide shutdown against gender-based violence. And it's going to be led by Women for Change. I mean, what's your take at this point ahead of the summit?
Yeah, definitely. I support the stand that is being taken by women. We will also have an opportunity to discuss issues of violence against women, infection of young people as far as HIV/AIDS is concerned. We will also discuss early pregnancy. We will be able to look specifically at how all of these issues affect young people in particular who are very vulnerable. We will discuss issues of access to education, which remains a big challenge, especially higher education, and how we could make that easier and start a sustainable intervention as far as that is concerned. And of course, we will also look at issues of climate change and a role that communities can play in climate change, but also how government can ensure that just transition does not deny the poorest of the poor access to energy.
Yeah, those are pertinent discussions. It's still about who needs to be heard. It's about the lasting legacy that the summit leaves beyond for future generations as well. And even just if we're looking at the leaders that will be attending the G20 summit, it's just going to be proceeding without some of the key world leaders. I mean, what's your reaction at this point in terms of the impact it will have going forward?
Well, I think that it is not always that an event is successful because everybody is there. I think there's enough people, very important voices, a critical mass that is coming. There is loads and variety of businesses that will be participating and institutions that are important in the world and in different countries. So yes, not everybody is going to be there, and this is not the first G20 where you don't have everybody. So you'll work with the people who are there. For me, if I just look at the level of registration and participation, I think we're in a good place.
That was Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, the convener of the G20 Social Summit, which will take place over 2 days as part of the bigger G20 program, which will be broadcast, by the way, throughout the coming week, right here on SABC News. Just speaking to my colleague, Liesl Wilson. When we return, we'll look at your reactions, your thoughts to our question of the day.
SABC, host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.
Well, as promised a moment ago, we're going to look at your responses to our question of the day. The battle for the burial of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu continuing between the Zambian government and his family months after he died in South Africa. And we asked at the beginning of the program whether you think there will be resolution at last in this matter. One here from Ali Naka says that Hakainde Hichilema, the president of Zambia, must stop beefing with the corpse. Kausa says not at all, because the family think they can win elections again in order for them to bury, but that's very far from happening. So that's from Kausa there, who says that the family of late President Lungu, former President Lungu, thinks that his political party can win elections again in Zambia in order for them to bury, but that's very far from happening. Chi Rapson says not at all, should have been buried at his home village. And Dr. Glenn Meda says, Hakainde Hichilema, that's the president of Zambia, please leave the Lungu family to bury their loved one the way they want. They don't want you there. Accept it and let them be, please. One from Afrolicious Queen says that imagine the money spent in court while the corpse is like a block of ice. They just need to bury the old man so that he can rest. As ever, a reminder that the views reflected are not those of SABC News, but viewers who are partaking in our discussions on the various news of the day. So before we go, we want to introduce you to Ibukunolwa Ajabe. That's a popular artist who's popularly known, in fact, as IBQUAKE, Nigerian-born spoken word artist who has been making waves in the literary scene. She has been speaking to our producer, Aphiwe Honono, this week about her career. Take a listen.
Okay, with me now we have spoken word artist IBQUAKE. I need you to unpack what that means for us.
So IBQUAKE, my name is Ibuku, and it starts with an IB. And the quake is there to just signify impact. You know how an earthquake happens, but the only difference is that mine is positive. It leaves a positive impact in the lives of people, meaning my words, yes.
I love that. You just delivered a powerful performance. We are currently at the Elevate Africa Summit. And can you tell us a bit about your performance? Our cameraman actually recorded a bit of it. But can you give us a bit of what that was about and why it was important for you to perform that today?
So the theme for this year, event is Africa, the Next Chapter. And what my piece did speak about was us breaking glass ceilings, because I think that it's not like Africa hasn't been here. We have been here. But I think that we're now rising up to the task and taking up what is rightfully ours and not letting it be stolen or taken from us. So my piece was just a reminder that we're here to break glass ceilings. We're here to move to the next chapter, growing in agriculture, health, name it. I mean, Africans are up to the task.
I love how you say we're here to break boundaries. I feel like sometimes we, as Africans, try so hard to mimic the West. And a lot of them, the West actually, is trying to mimic us. Yeah. So how do you think you as a person, you as a spoken word artist, can encourage young Africans to be themselves and put themselves out there as they are? How do you go about doing that?
I think it's best to know and realize that Africa is admirable. Africa is authentic and original, right? I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of, speaking in your dialect, your accent, wearing your culture, embracing your food, your tradition, thinking outside the box. I thank God for technology, using technology to transform Africa. I think young Africans should be at the forefront of shifting the narrative and changing the idea that we don't need to be the Western world. If anything, we only need to collaborate, but we don't need to become them. We can only use our resources to build what we need in Africa. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you about a powerful spoken word performance without letting you hear it for yourself. So IBQUAKE, can I ask you to please give us just a little rendition of what you gave us inside there today?
Okay, for sure. So this is Africa's next chapter, one that includes trade, creativity, agriculture, fashion, name it. And what we have is enough to begin with, because trade is power. It is how a continent stops being pitied and starts being paid. It is the sound of many waters and wonder. It is the language of nations who take themselves seriously. And Africa is speaking now, fiercely, fluently, finally. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can I give you a hug?
and hoping that Africa will be speaking fiercely, fluently, and finally at the upcoming G20 summit, the first one to be hosted on African soil. And on SABC News, as part of our coverage, our special program is coming up at 8:30 immediately after us. So that's in a few minutes from now. And they're asking, will South Africa's G20 presidency deliver for Africa and the global south? Thulasizwe Simelane will lead those discussions in just a moment. And that's it from the Unwrap Africa team. We will see you next week when we too unpack all things G20s. Thank you for watching.